Most fractional CMOs I talk to are so busy with client work, their own LinkedIn presence becomes an afterthought. In this Clarity Jam, I sat down with Rachel, a seasoned marketing leader who scaled multiple B2B companies from zero to Series C, to unpack what's working on our LinkedIn profile and what's quietly maybe slowing down some momentum. We covered how to sharpen your one-liner, why a waitlist might outperform a newsletter in her case, and how to make your feature section actually convert.
My name is Andrea Go. I'm a fractional CMO for my clients, which usually range from B2B e-commerce companies to tech and SaaS companies, all B2B.
Awesome. And you're definitely not the first fractional CMO I've had on Clarity Jam so far. How did you kind of get into the fractional world, and what do you kind of look, and what types of companies do you typically work with as a fractional CMO?
So I cut my teeth boots on the ground in content. So I was very much an SME doing the research and writing and editing and all of that good stuff. It's changed a little bit with AI, so that I know those roles have evolved a bit, but I evolved into more of a fractional CMO role once I had a couple of times. Once I had experience under my belt growing companies from no marketing team or a very small marketing team or a marketing team with no direction into teams that were pretty much fully fit out, whether that's with full-time employees or contractors, teams that could grow and scale. I grew one company from pre-launch to a little bit after Series C as their only dedicated marketer, particularly in the organic space. I grew the content team of another company from basically whenever the founder had time to write, which was not very often, to a very regular publishing cadence that helped our newsletter, helped our organic acquisition, helped our partnership initiatives and all of that. And then I brought them to, I want to say like a 5 or 6 month runway of pre-scheduled posts, for example. And so once I had done that a few times, I didn't do it very publicly, but just some people in the industry knew that I was like the only marketer for a couple of companies that they had seen grow. And so that's when people reached out to me and started asking, hey, can you do this for us? Can you do the same for my company? This is kind of the space that we're in as well, and we want to see the same kind of initiatives, the same partner marketing, the same events, the same kind of organic growth that you've been able to do. Yeah. I know there's more in there, but I will also.
Oh, go on.
I will also say that before fractional CMO was a term, I had some language in my LinkedIn profile that touched on that, because I noticed people were coming to me asking me to grow their teams and figure out their attribution models and their tooling and all of that. But if they were remote, usually they'd extend. But if they were in person, eventually we would hit a point where they want someone in the office full time. And so that's when I would offboard and kind of onboard someone who could be in their office and be there every day with them. So I think I had said something like, I'll be a marketer that grows and scales with your company as much as you, or as little as you want. And then when it's ready to hand over the reins, like I can do that as well. Because I mean, it's just a big, like, no ego thing. Like, something I've realized is you always work with and are around the same people in many industries. And so you never want to approach it as, oh, this client is going to replace me with someone. It's more like, I'm glad that I get to show this new person how things work in this company, this team that I'm proud to have set up, and things like that. And who knows, maybe I'll work with them again in the future. And that's actually come around a few times.
Totally. So that's kind of a really good backstory. If you want to go ahead and pull up your LinkedIn, and I'll kind of go ahead and riff on what is working and maybe suggest some things to make it even better.
Sure. Okay. So here's my LinkedIn. I used to have a different cover, which is like, when I was early career, it was really like high, like trying to project confidence. And then mid-career was like really, oh, I feel like I know so much. And then like later career, when I evolved into more of a manager and saw how kind of larger companies work, it was back to like, oh yeah, I don't know anything actually. So it was kind of a cyclical like joke almost between some of my marketing friends and I, that was like, when you start your career, you're like, I don't know anything, and then in the middle it's like, oh yeah, I got this, and then at the towards the end, or closer to when you really know more about the industry and the people you work with and all of those roles and tactics and everything, it's back to actually I don't know anything. So now it was more like I think what my cover picture right now is, it's been so long since I've looked at it even, has been kind of the progression of my own brand and website into, before I focused on it at all, I was just focusing on clients, like the cobbler's shoe story. And then when I really started looking at it, seeing like how that growth kind of escalates. So that's what the cover picture there it is.
Got it. That's really interesting. Because when I see kind of that graph, I kind of see like it feels a little bit like Google Analytics, like a Google Analytics chart.
It is. It's really just like, well, here's like an inside look into kind of what changed when I started paying attention to my own brand versus just focusing on clients.
Totally. And there's, I mean, it's definitely a sharper image, but I almost wonder if you, because the text is pretty small and pretty much the first thing you see is the chart that is basically Google Analytics. I'm wondering if there's maybe a sharper CTA to something like, do you have, I mean, I know cobbler shoes problem, but do you have a lead magnet, or do you want to get people to schedule a call if you're trying to always keep a wait list going or something like that? Like, put that space, like you still have that in there, still have what you have there, but also just have a sharper CTA, because that is then like prime real estate between that and then also your one liner, which is like marketing director and CMO. That's great. You kind of list some of the brands that you worked for and stuff like that. But like one of the most interesting things you've shared so far is, oh, I am known as the first marketing team hire and have helped multiple companies go from early stage to Series C. I would lead with that as opposed to what you have now, because I wouldn't know any of that had you not told that to me right now.
Okay, yeah, that's really good. I wrote that down. Marketer. And yeah, it's the cobbler's kids problem, or the cobbler's children's shoes problem kind of thing. But I'll add that to my list of things to do for my own brand. Thank you.
No worries. I guess my other kind of question after you is, for somebody who is not quite ready to work with you yet, or you're trying to nurture and get another fractional CMO client, what is the main CTA that you want them to take away from that? Is it to just book a call, or is there something you want them to read? What is that? What does that look like?
I would prefer if they signed up for my newsletter, because I can't take on new clients right now. I'm fortunate enough to have my pipeline pretty much filled for the next couple months. So maybe sign up for a wait list, but that wait list is actually my newsletter, which also is not getting enough attention, by the way. So I don't know. I don't want to just ask them to sign up for a newsletter and then not send anything for a couple months. So maybe you can give some advice on what people can take action with.
I mean, two things. One, obviously in an ideal world, send a newsletter once a month, just so you kind of look alive. However, if you already mentioned to yourself that, the newsletter is your wait list, just rebrand it to a wait list. Make that be your primary CTA within your cover photo. And then also, I think you have premium as well. So go ahead and use that custom little button on LinkedIn and go say, get either, if you are going to commit to doing your newsletter, even if it's quarterly, that's still enough time that people are going to remember who you are for the most part. Either say subscribe to my newsletter or, get on the wait list, and just utilize your real estate on LinkedIn that everyone's going to look at. Way easy. That just makes it way, way, way more likely to get to redirect people from the platform that you rent to something that you own.
Okay. Maybe you can give some advice about my newsletter as well, because right now it started when I was first venturing into remote work. And so I first worked remotely in 2014. So that is way before a lot of people even knew what it was. And when I explained how I worked to other people, a lot of the questions I got were like, oh, how do you do that? How do you get into that? So my newsletter actually started as something that I could give people that explains, like, if you want to get into remote work, here's kind of a list of things that I wish I had known. So I've since put that into an ebook as a free giveaway with the newsletter, but it's a very different audience to my clients, right? My clients already know or don't care about that whole realm and way to work. So do you recommend splitting the newsletter, or is it not even big enough, which I don't think it's big enough to do? Or do you recommend kind of changing the focus but leaving the old subscribers on, kind of thing? So I do still talk about remote work on my newsletter, but I also talk quite a bit more about marketing, marketing leadership, marketing strategy, and e-commerce and SaaS and product marketing, all that.
Yeah, how often do you send newsletters right now?
I used to send out newsletters once a month. I stopped at the beginning of this year. Yeah.
Got it. And why did you stop?
I ended up taking on, in addition to my regular client load, which I try to keep at 3 to 4 clients, I ended up taking on a project. And so that just made it so that I didn't really have a lot of time to focus on my own brand quite as much, when I was focusing so much on client strategy and having like all of these things to juggle and make sure I don't forget in my head. So it's a lot of context switching, and I wasn't able to put my own brand in that mix.
Got it. Do you want to go back to kind of investing a little bit more in the newsletter, or, yeah?
I think I like my newsletter, but I am obviously biased. And I know there are so many newsletters out there that people do put a lot of time in, right? And sometimes since mine isn't a revenue stream, mine is really just for informational purposes and to share like what I've learned and lessons that I think are important as I've gone through my career, run experience with my clients and all of that. I don't think it's one of the best newsletters out there. And is it worth filling people's inboxes with a newsletter that I don't have a lot of time to invest in?
I think it's going to depend. That's to be honest. I think it also just depends on kind of what your goals are. From what you just shared and what I can infer, maybe, don't trying to split that out into 2 separate newsletters. Probably might be a lot of work for a lot of context switching and maybe not that much ROI. If it really is more just like, investing in what I'm learning and what you're hearing and like, what you're actually working on, then having that all be in one and, maybe only going to doing it once a quarter could go a long way to kind of keep that owned asset. Just so, LinkedIn is the place that you rent. Your newsletter is something that you own. It doesn't necessarily have to be the greatest newsletter ever. It just needs to be, kind of hit the goals that you are setting out for it.
Okay. Well, that's good. I was hoping you would say I shouldn't split it, because I don't know, if it's too time consuming right now, it'll get pushed probably even further. It'll get kicked further down the line. So
Totally. And if you want to scroll down further down the page onto LinkedIn into your featured section, can you maybe walk through why you have these 3 articles, these 3 LinkedIn posts featured?
I've forgotten why they are there. Well, one of them is a client landed like an award that I'm pretty proud of, because it's one of the clients that when I joined, they didn't really have a marketing initiative at all. Their form of acquisition was cold email outreach, which wasn't doing very well. And now, a lot of it is organic, and our growth really heavily relies on organic inbound leads. And then another one is an article I wrote for a different client that did really well, and as measured by like an online tool, is essentially valued at more than 9K. That's like their projected value of the piece of content. And the third one is a testimonial turned into an image from someone that I did like a consulting call with. And I think this was posted in 2023 or early 2004. But back then I wanted to get more into consulting, not really as a revenue stream, more like to figure out what companies are doing and to be able to run experiments with companies and see how that's going so that I can bring those learnings back to my own clients, my own company. And so I did a lot of like complimentary consulting for people I just knew in the industry who were launching their own things or wanted to adjust their direction or figure out why they weren't growing as they expected. Back in that timeline though, or in those years, a lot of people had been seeing a slowdown from post-COVID spikes. And so that was kind of like a lot of people were panicking about like, oh, my growth is slowing down so much. And then if you pull up their 2019 metrics, they're still better than before. It's just not the same growth trajectory that they saw during the pandemic. And so that's what a lot of people were talking about back then.
Got
So
it.
that's the background of those featured posts. I don't really know why those three in particular are the ones that are there. I think they were just the latest ones that I had posted that I was like, hey, this is like cool and I am proud to show this. So that's why it's featured.
Yeah. Do you think that your feature section right now is maybe almost too humble, too low ego, and actually not showcasing what you actually do for your clients as a fractional CMO? Because some of these actually feel more like maybe the past version of you where you were just a writer. And if you're really trying to get people into either your waitlist slash newsletter, or however you decide to play that out, and then maybe talking about a couple ones where you kind of, have a testimonial where you showcasing your fractional CMO work. And then maybe you have one about, something, even just those two by themselves. But one more testimonial could go a very long way versus some of the stuff that you have today. What do you think?
I can add another testimonial on there. Would you switch out? Which one would you switch out? The third one?
I would switch out the third one, and I would also switch out the second one. Because I feel like both of those kind of maybe hint at things that you maybe have outgrown when it comes to the type of work that you're doing with the companies you work for. Could you maybe have something? I know your website is out of date, but do you have a testimonial page on your website? Do you have a case study? Can you share a testimonial? And can you also make your number one featured spot? Shouldn't that be going to your newsletter / waitlist? Have something in there so you're actually harvesting the traffic that you're getting on LinkedIn and you're actually sending them somewhere to a place that you own.
Okay, I can test that. So I would basically post about my newsletter, make that the first featured post, put up a couple more testimonials, which I can grab on LinkedIn. Actually, I collect most of my testimonials on LinkedIn, so you'll see them here.
Perfect.
I'll just copy and paste one of these then into a like Canva or something then.
Yeah, that also works great. And you don't even have to do a post about some of these things. I'd almost say like if you have your waitlist in like Hit or Beehive or something like that, just post the link to it with like a little featured thumbnail. And that can convert just as well as a LinkedIn post, if not better.
Okay, I might ask you for examples of what that looks like after this call. I just can't visualize it right now without a post.
Totally.
But I haven't been very active on LinkedIn recently either, so.
Yeah, awesome. If you want to click off of LinkedIn.
Click off and go
and
away.
just stop if you just want to stop sharing your screen.
Oh, sure.
And then also before we wrap, is there anything else any other questions you have?
I think that's it. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.